All right, folks, we're back and we have an article that's over on platformengineering.com talking about the cost of IT and essentially makes an argument that says it's getting so expensive these days is that you cannot afford to not embrace platform engineering because otherwise the cost will just be through the roof. And so, Tracy, we've been talking about platform engineering on the show before and where it fits in DevOps, but is there something bigger happening here? And is it going to be driven not just by better developer experiences, but flat out hardcore costs?
Okay, well, when I saw this article, I kind of laughed because when I've ever heard the term fortune telling associated to platform engineering, it's sort of a joke, to be quite honest. It's sort of something that is, we talk about, how can you build the perfect golden path and watch developers create their own pipelines anywhere, and you know ahead of time what they need. But maybe there is something more to it than just a frame of reference to what potentially could happen or what we're trying to do. I kind of giggled when I read it because I always thought it as being kind of a satirical reference to what platform engineering is attempting. But the farther we get down the world of AI, I believe that we can do better, predictive work, so that we don't have to be quite so reactive. And in that space, I don't think it's a joke. I think it's a serious matter and a matter that we've been working on for quite some time. I mean, these environments are really, really complex. When you think about trying to manage a Kubernetes environment, even tracking the cost is difficult. We have Terraform, we have DevOps tooling that we need to be adding. We have cybersecurity issues that we're addressing. So yeah, it would be kind of nice to have some fortune telling around the platform engineering space, but what we build in the next 2 years and build in with AI, will tell the story.
Well, Tracy, I took that. I think it was somewhat tongue in cheek, but I took it really as the higher level message is really a very old one, which is don't focus on the short term tactics, but focus on long term strategy. Right. And, we can spend all our day, every day being reactive and fighting the fires that are right in front of us. And if we do that, we never plan for the future and we never figure out what our platform really needs to look like to support something that's 6 months out or a year out, let alone 2, 3, 5, or 10 years out. Right. And I think to me, it was more of a parable of how do you get people to start thinking about, we've been doing platforms and, the cloud and platform engineering for 20 plus years now. We need to start at the big level, start thinking about and planning about these things as long-term projects, not let's just implement the next thing, shiny object that comes in front of us.
Mitch, the Boy Scouts have a motto, says be prepared. This is essentially the IT equivalent. So is this achievable and how come we're always so reactive?
Well, the article certainly was aspirational, and I mean that in a positive way. I like the analogy of comparing of fortune tellers versus fortune spenders. And, we've all been in situations where we're thrown into a mess and we've got to clean it up. That's one scenario, probably a very likely scenario for a lot of platform engineering. And I think the message here is be prepared, as in raise periscope. Don't just, pipe underwater and try to solve all the technical challenges, but figure out where you're going and why you want to go there. And more importantly, towards the end of the article, you talked about using cost management as a strategic advantage. In other words, kind of going back to the 90s, it's about the budget, stupid, or about the economy, stupid. Talk the money story. What's the value that platform engineering is bringing to the business? Yes, I like that it's focused on developers and who the customers are of platform engineering. But ultimately, the customer is the business, right? What's the benefit you're bringing? And I think there's a great story to tell. Thing I like to say about platform engineering is platform engineering can be the force multiplier to DevOps. It's the thing that can really leverage it, accelerate it, spread it across multiple projects without the chaos that can happen when it's just done organically. So I think that strategic look is well advised.
Stacey, are we psychologically capable of achieving this goal? Because it's really about the humans at the end of the day.
It is. And we can strive to. I mean, this don't be reactive, try to be proactive is, one of the swan songs of the security industry as well. So I hear it so much. And, I think as humans, we can strive to be as proactive as possible and to try and forecast, but we're still going to be reactionary. We're still going to see what comes right in front of us. And sometimes that just eclipses everything we want to do. It's kind of like when you wake up in the morning, you think, here's what I'm going to get done all day. And then you get done maybe half of it, right? Best laid plans of mice and men and maybe platform engineers. And so I think, we can strive to, and this is the article is a good reminder to think in that mindset. It is a way of thinking. And I think we can all use that mindset of remember what we can strive to do, not just what's in front of us, because then we can solve long-term problems in the bigger picture as well. But we have to carve time and make the time in that thought process.
So there's a culture that we've established in this area, in DevOps and in platform engineering, that I have been bitching about for a very long time. And one of those, part of that culture comes from open source, which everybody knows I'm a huge fan of open source. But in this particular area, we have put so much time and effort in building everything we do through scripted processes. Everything we do is scripted in this area. This is holding us back. It's keeping us from being fortune tellers, but we're not spending either, because what occurs is these platform engineers, they go directly to open source tools and start writing these things. And, they build out their own Terraform. They have all their GitOps. All of this is scripted. There's not a lot of real serious tooling that's being implemented, because why not? Because they would have to go ask for budget, and they don't have budget authority. So we're in a loop. And in order to get out of that loop, we have to change the culture. And I believe that C-level execs have to understand that if they want a more solid environment, proper tooling, moving away from scripting is going to be important. And the other thing that we're going to see are MCP servers that are going to start managing these workloads. That is not far away.
Something you said, Tracy, makes me think of Clayton Christensen's The Innovator's Dilemma. Right. And one of the challenges it sounds like we're facing is we're using the wrong metrics. And I think, what Mitch highlighted from the article is changing the metrics from looking at cost as a cost center to looking at your costs as understanding what's the business value. Right. And I think your argument is right now is that the scripting is not providing business value. It's providing just pure cost benefit and a very small cost benefit and not true business value. And if we change how we look at these things and how we measure them, then we can start operating differently.
I just don't know if it's achievable. And I'll tell a story from many years ago. And I was asking a fella who came to me and he said, what do you know about X, Y, and Z? And I said, well, this is what we know. And then I asked him, I said, how come you're asking me? Because it's not like we don't publish reams and reams of content out there and it's all available for you. And this is why we created all this stuff. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said, son, it's really hard to think about fire prevention when you're holding on to a hose for dear life. And
perfect.
This is true.
That's exactly,
true.
Yes, it is.
and I'll tell you something along those same lines, Mike. At the end of the day, it comes down to money. Right? And a lesson I've learned in my life in business is people don't like to pay for nice to haves. They pay for must haves. And when you're talking about things in the abstract in the future, and this is, by the way, Stacey, this is a problem in security. Nothing happened. Why do I got to pay more money? You want another trinket? It's only when you get breached that you get religion, right? And it's the same thing here. Don't talk to me about what this may be able to save if such and such happens and we do that, and this. Those are nice to haves, right? I'm holding on to the fire hose for dear friggin' life, to your point, Mike. And that's where my priorities are. And in tough budget cycles, those are the things that get funded. And the nice to haves don't. It's just, I think, just the way of the world.
And if you can have a developer write something that solves the problem for right now, script it out, then it gets done that way. And that's just I've watched this now for 30 years, and it baffles me every time we have a discussion, every time we think about evolving to the next level and being more, proactive than reactive. I just think it's really difficult to do it on the set of tools and scripts that we currently have that we're trying to manage. It creates a reactive environment.
Yeah, but that developer is on a fixed sunk cost budget, right? That's already been allocated for. That's not new budget. And that's why people do it, right?
And they don't have budget to buy tools themselves, so they do what they have to do. And that's why the open source community has supported this, and it's why it's flourished.
How much of this also, though, Tracy, is simply, a lot of developers like to write scripts because they're like, hey, it's guaranteed lifetime employment. I'm the only one who knows how it works. And therefore, I'm not going to worry about the cost.
Mike, it is built into our way we think and our culture. And I promise you, if somebody's written a lot of those scripts, everybody prays and prays that he doesn't go outside and get hit by a bus.
Tracy, this might be waving the red flag in front of you, but isn't writing scripts sort of what the whole idea what developers can do it all themselves in DevOps? We kind of set ourselves up to go down this path, even more so with DevOps. I mean, we've obviously, I think, somewhat abandoned the developers has to do every job, but we kind of created this mess even more so for ourselves. True? Agree? Or you tell me I'm told.
No, I'm totally true. And one of the reasons is because we see this process in a very fragmented way. We see it based on each application team. Let's just call it an application team. So each application team is given the task of addressing these problems. We don't step it up and try to see it as an entire organizational structure and how do we solve it at a higher level. Because they don't want to spend the money on that. Each team can address it. So each team then goes and looks for the tooling that they want to use for their particular language, for their particular environment, and it's been working. But as we got more complex infrastructure, Kubernetes is very, very complex. We started building more and more of these scripts, and now we're seeing the opportunity maybe to do something more automated, do something with AI, an agentic AI, something that can make decisions. Where's the data coming from? How do we see that history? How do we see what's happening? We're going to have to figure out how to really look at the scripts and try to repeat what they are doing. But they're all fragmented. So it's a challenge, and I'm sure someday we'll sort it out. But the way we'll sort it out, we'll just throw away the baby with the bathwater and start all over again.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way of it. All right. Hey, guys, I think we got to pull the plug on this one. We're about out of time. We have, as usual, our full TechStrong TV schedule immediately following today's gang show. As I said at the top of the show, we're on dueling locations this week. Mike and Tracy and one of our TechStrong TV film crews will be in Denver for the Open Source Summit. Mitch and I will be in New York City for Platform Con. I think that's the 26th. It's a virtual event, by the way. So if you're not in New York and there's, 50,000 people or something signed up for the virtual event, you can still sign up for Platform Con at platformcon.com and catch all, I don't know how many hundreds of different sessions there are there. I'm doing one with our friends from Checkmarks. Mitch, you're doing one, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
doing two, actually, panel and in my own session. So.
Very cool. And we'll also be broadcasting live on the 26th too from TechStrong TV there. So stay tuned for that. Busy week. But for now, on behalf of Jack and Stacey and Tracy and Mitch and Mike, have a great day, everyone. We're out.